it is time to embarrass myself and reveal how I am doing on my 26 books for 2026 lists. That's right, I have 2 of them because, I don't know, I was a psychopath at the beginning of this year and I was like, well, I'd read all of my 25 books for 2025, so why not double it and make it really hard? Welcome back to A D in the Life, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Adi. I like to talk about books, and I like to read books in every single genre you could think of, pretty much. I mean, there's some that I don't really read a lot of, but I still try. While I have read a lot of books this year, I wouldn't say I've done the best job on my 26 books for 2026 list, and unfortunately, I made 2 of them. One that was just purely books on my TBR that have been either out for a while, or they were recent additions to my TBR, and one that was just full of 2026 new releases. Actually, I think all of them by authors because there were so many that I couldn't fit them all in my 26 books or 2026 regular TBR. That's 52 books that I thought I'd be able to make sure I read by the end of the year, on top of all the other books that I want to read. I did write down a tracker on my Instagram stories for these lists. We have a lot to get through, so I think we just need to get started. We're going to start with the books that were non-new releases that were on my TBR for the year. I actually started off really strong, and I do fear we've hit a bit of a nosedive in terms of the progress. So as it stands right now, I have read 12 out of 26, which if I do the math, I think that that's like 40%. And we are more than 50% done with the year. So I need to catch up. Let's start from the top. And I actually think I read this book very early in the year. And that is The Correspondent, a very hyped debut from 2025. And it's also an epistolary novel, which basically just means it's written fully through letters, although there's some emails in it too. But I always eat up books written that way. So I did have a fabulous time with it. I also did love the audiobook, but I think I actually preferred reading it physically because you really get the full effect of it all being letters versus an audiobook, it doesn't really feel the same. I don't know, but I did end up loving it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I do think at the end of the day, this does live up to the hype. I mean, generally speaking, most people I know that have read this have enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I put it onto my list. Next on the 26 for 2026 TBR was Red Rising, which took me a while to get to, but I did finally read it. And by a while, I mean, I think 3 years. I have been saying I'm going to read this by the end of the year. This would have been the 3rd year in a row. So we finally did it. We've actually read the next book in the series. Why do I keep saying we? It's just me and my one brain. It was quite the experience. The graphic audio is phenomenal. I understand why a lot of people love it. This is sci-fi dystopian set in space, which also felt very unique. Great cast of characters. The second book was even better. I'm excited to read the next one, and I'm glad that I finally read this. The weight that was lifted off my shoulders. Oh, and I gave it 4 stars. So pretty good, I would say. Didn't fully live up to the hype, but also everyone said the first book isn't the best book, so. Now the next one on this list is a behemoth, and I don't know when I'm gonna get to this one, and that is 22, I can't even say it. 11/22/63. I mean, this is literally a door stopper. This, how many pages is this? 800? I fear this has the lowest chance of being read this year, just for sake of time. So I might just adjust the goal to be that I start it in 2026, and that I'll feel okay about. I really want to read it. It would be my first Stephen King book. I don't know anything about it. I know that it's part historical fiction, part thriller, maybe part horror, part sci-fi. I think there's time travel, romance, mystery. In my mind, this has everything that I would love in a book. I don't know where my copy of this book is, but the next book on the list was Crooked Kingdom, and I did read Crooked Kingdom. That was also an early read for me. I really didn't want to finish the Six of Crows duology because I didn't want to part with the characters, but I was missing them, and it was honestly pretty much just as good as the first. I liked the first just a tiny bit better, but I still gave this, I think, 4.5 stars, maybe 4.25 stars. It was a delightful time reuniting with all of the characters from the first book. It wasn't a true heist. I think that's why I liked the first one better. It felt higher stakes than the second. There's a short story actually that just came out that follows the aftermath of both books, but it's not the same. So I was pretty sad after I finished it, but I was glad that I read it. Next on the list is Brimstone. Ugh, what do we do with Brimstone, guys? I made it to, I think, like page 30. I actually picked it for a book series roulette one week, and I just couldn't. I wasn't drawn to it whatsoever, and I loved Quicksilver. I do remember that taking me a hot sec to to get into it. I think just knowing the extremely mixed reviews about Brimstone has turned me off from really wanting to prioritize reading it. I still want to. I feel like I need to know what happens, but I don't know. It's not a DNF. I do plan on finishing it this year, but when I come back to it, I'm not quite sure. Also, like, why did I put so many fantasy books on this list? I should have known better. The next one is Rose in Chains. Haven't read this yet. I am excited to read this. Just again, haven't prioritized it. Truthfully, the summertime is not when I want to read fantasy. Fantasy in my brain is very much fall winter vibe. So I've kind of put off a lot of these and I feel like I will regret it towards the last couple months of the year. The only thing I know about this is that it's based on a Hermione fanfic, I think, but obviously watered down in order to be published. Oh, and I do love Julie Soto, although I've only read The Thrashers by her. I need to read her other books. Next on the list is another fantasy, and that is Silver Cloak. Now this one, I do feel pretty confident that I will read this year because I really, really want to. And truthfully, I think it's just because of this gorgeous map. I don't remember what it's about. The cover is drawing me in. I've heard fantastic things. I know there's another book coming out in this series in September. I feel like I need to get on it. I have full intentions of reading this, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So as you can see, we're not doing well. The next book on the list is Dagger Bound, and I DNF'd it. Actually, I think that was the first book I've DNF'd in over 2 years. I am not a DNF'er. I'm learning to be a better DNF'er. Part of me wants to make it a soft DNF, but I had a coworker spoil the entire end of the book for me because we both decided I probably was never gonna read it. I didn't have a fun time with this. It was boring. It was drawn out. I made it to about 40%. There was so much spice. Still don't really know why it was necessary. Also, one of the major twists, I guessed pretty much from page 1. It seemed very obvious to me. And it felt kind of like a copy and paste of Fourth Wing, but with wolves. And that's not what I wanted. If I wanted to read Fourth Wing, I would just go back and reread Fourth Wing. All right, I think that this is the last fantasy on this list, and that is The Rose Bargain. I also believe this is a YA fantasy duology. I'm pretty sure it's Bridgerton meets, I forget what the other thing that people say is like a combination of. I'll put it here if I remember. Love the cover. I've heard fantastic things. I do love YA fantasy. I think it's so much easier to understand, much more fast paced. I also love that it's a duology, which means I'll be able to get through it quickly and have everything resolved. So I do plan on reading this, I think, this year. All right, we've got quite a few thrillers in a row. Look Closer by David Ellis. I haven't read this yet on purpose because it takes place around Halloween. I'm going to read it around Halloween. I already have a baby Halloween TBR. There's another book on this list, which I'll get to soon, that I also want to read around Halloween. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I haven't read yet because I looked at the page count and it freaked me out. I think it's over 500 pages and it's a thriller. I might have made that up. Again, I'll put a correction here if that's the case. I've actually still only read one Karen Slaughter book, and that is We Are All Guilty Here. My favorite thriller from last year. I say it every time because I loved it so much. I have no doubt I will enjoy Pretty Girls, although I'll probably be slightly creeped out because that woman does have quite the imagination. And I don't know anything about it and I want to go into it blind. I know that it's well loved in the Book Talk Bookstagram community. And I also know some people think it's extremely sickening. Now, 2 books in a row that I have read. We Used to Live Here is a horror and I loved it, but I don't own it because I am convinced it will come to life in the middle of the night and murder me in my sleep. So creepy. It's about this couple that have just moved into a new house that they bought, and the people that used to live there, hence the title, show up because they want to get a tour of the house. That's all I'm going to tell you. There are paranormal elements. I feel like it's worth mentioning that because that can be a trigger for some people. I actually don't do well with paranormal elements. There were some scenes in this book that I had to kind of skim through because it was terrifying. I could not read this at night, but then I also needed to know how it was going to end. And then the ending pissed me off, but I had a good time. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I haven't read his second book yet, which is The Caretaker, but I want to. But I've also heard mixed things about that one, so I don't know if I'm gonna read it, but I want to. Then I also finally read my first S.A. Cosby book, which is Razorblade Tears. I really enjoyed this. Very graphic. This is about 2 fathers who have lost their sons. They were tragically murdered, and they basically go on this revenge tour to try to figure out who did it. They are polar opposites, so there are some hilarious moments. They also feel that they are above the law in a sense. They don't really care about the law, actually, is more accurate. So crazy shit happens. Wild Red, audiobook was great. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely want to read more of his books. I have a feeling I'll like some of his other books more. Next on the list was All the Colors of the Dark. Haven't read this yet, also mostly on purpose because I knew that this took place towards the end of the summer. This is a thriller, mystery, historical fiction of sorts. I believe it's set in the Ozarks. I plan on reading this pretty much immediately. I just have to focus. I think I have to read it first physically with my eyes for a bit, and then I'll do the audiobook because I've heard the audiobook is fantastic. Next on the list, another book that I'm waiting to read during Halloween time is Cackle, which is by Rachel Harrison, one of my favorite horror authors. I would like to make it through her entire backlist. There's still, I think, one or two other ones. She has a new book coming out this year too. This one is specifically about witches, so I just feel like I need to read it in the Halloween timeframe. And then the last thriller of sorts on this list is The Last Town, which is the last book in the Pines trilogy. I read it and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It doesn't beat out the first book for me. The first book is the best. I will say this ended perfectly. Every single book in this trilogy is right around 200 to 300 pages. So fast paced, a bit gory, I would say. Honestly, a cuckoo bananas plot, but it's also just so good. I really enjoyed them. I'm partially sad that they're over, but again, I loved how this ended and I'm glad that I finally read it. Now we get into the romance section. I honestly did do some damage here. I have yet to read Well Actually. I don't know why. I might have gotten it into my head that it is a fall book, but I also probably made it up. I really don't know much about this romance. I think there is a podcast involved and maybe some fake dating, or it might be like a second chance reunion type of romance. I don't remember, but I've heard good things. It comes highly recommended by a lot of my friends, so I do plan on reading it. I did finally read Promise Me Sunshine and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. This is a book that I'm ashamed over how long it took me to read it because it was so good. Also a perfect end of summer into fall read if you're looking for one. Definitely a heavy emphasis on grief, but you have a grumpy book boyfriend, but also more like strangers to friends to lovers. So good. Perfect slow burn. I think about this book all the time, honestly. I did also read Nightshade, which I now have to read the second book in this duology, which is Daybreak. It just came out pretty recently. This is a dark academia romance. It's set at a university that is split into houses, very similar to Harry Potter, although this book is nothing like Harry Potter. It was enemies to lovers for a hot sec, then became a little insta-lovey. So it went from being almost a 5-star read to a 4-star read by the end of it, but the cliffhanger got me, and so I need to read the second book, and it's only 2 books total. So hopefully it all figures itself out in the second book. What else we got on here? Oh yeah, Heart the Lover. Not a romance exactly, more like a literary fiction romance. We actually read this for a book club pick this year and I loved it as well. I gave it 4.5 stars. Easy, fast-paced read to me. I think it's under 300 pages. I love the way that it was set up. Very well-placed time jumps, but it starts off with a girl kind of in between 2 men. In my opinion, not an actual love triangle. So some people will disagree with me on that, but I really liked it. If you like a book where it does kind of feel like a long stream of consciousness, I think you'll like this one too. I feel like I'm missing some of my books. I just recently finished Same Time Next Summer. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. My last Annabelle Monaghan book that I needed to read. I am very sad that I have none of hers left, but I thought this was a perfectly executed childhood friends to lovers second chance romance. The reasoning, while dramatic, made sense to me. There wasn't really any miscommunication, even though it was dual POV at times, and also no insta-love. I don't know how she did it, but I love Annabelle's writing so much. I think this one is her most underrated in my opinion. I would highly recommend, especially if you're somebody that loves Carly Fortune's books. Speaking of, I did also read Meet Me at the Lake, which is, well, no, it's not a friends to lovers. It is a second chance romance, but it's between these 2 characters that just had met one day in the past and basically fell in love with each other during that one day. And then they reunite years later. The first half of this book, loved. I couldn't put it down. Very dramatic and juicy. And also the vibes were incredible. It's set at a lake resort. My biggest problem with this is that the main male character got away with way too much. Didn't have to do any groveling. It pissed me off. So it ended up at 3.5 stars. It was probably close to 4.5 star rating until that last like 30% of the book. I still love it. I think it gets a bad rep. I also just generally seem to love all of Carly's books, so I had a good time with it. I still unfortunately have one more Allie Hazelwood book left to read, and that is Love on the Brain. I have been asked for an Allie Hazelwood ranking, and I can't obviously do that until I read this book. I don't know why I haven't prioritized it because I love her writing so much. I have no doubt that I'll love this too. I don't know. I'll read it soon. Last true romance is The X-Vows. I'm actually planning on reading this in the next week or so because this is the last true summer romance that is on my list, and summer is almost over. This is a second chance romance, which I'm worried I'm reading too many second chance romances and I'm gonna be second chance romanced out, but I'm excited to read it. I loved her other bookie With the View. I just loved her writing, loved the way she wrote banter, loved how she wrote the spice. So I have high hopes for this one, and my sister also loved it, and we generally have pretty similar tastes when it comes to romances, so I have a good feeling. Okay, 2 more books on this specific list. Carrie Soto is back. I loved it. 5 stars. Maybe my favorite TJR book. This is about a retired tennis player that comes back to reclaim her records that she used to own. I love a complex female main character, and Carrie is certainly that, but also I loved her relationship with her father. I love that there was a little bit of romance in it. The audiobook was fantastic. I just loved it. I just loved it. Okay, last one on this list is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I just haven't felt inclined to pick it up for some reason, but I think it's a short read. So I feel like that one can kind of wait until I just need like a quicker palate cleanser, although his books always hit really hard because they usually have very valuable life lessons. So they're not really light, fluffy reads, but I've heard good things about his book and I would like to read through his backlist. So this one is next up. And the last one on my 26 books for 2026 non-new releases. Okay, so I took like a 5-minute break and then realized that my hair part was weird for probably the entire first half of the video, but you know what? We're gonna keep rolling. Now for the 26 new releases for 2026, I've actually done not terribly. Let's pull up the list. So out of the 26, I have read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 out of 26, which I believe is around 57%, which is much more on track with where we are in the year. So I feel pretty good about this list. I think I will very easily finish it, although I think we have to make some changes, which we'll get to. Now, contrary to the other list, I didn't love the first book that I read, which was The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. This was disappointing, and even more disappointing given that I love her writing. I think I just prefer her thrillers. To be honest, also, I don't know that I love books about the music industry. I love the film industry. Music industry, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. This is about a band that broke up, got back together, but it's mostly about the lead singer of the band. I forget her name. Honestly, I barely remember the plot of this. I gave it 3 stars. At the end of the day, it wasn't terrible. I remember the second half really carrying the full story, and I liked how it ended. Also, the audiobook, not that great, because even though it's a book about the music industry, the audiobook doesn't make any musical elements into musical elements. You know what I mean? There's no songs, there's no singing, which I found that to be weird. Then I read Everyone in This Bank is a Thief, and this is the 3rd full-length novel, technically 4th book in the Ernest Cunningham mystery series, one of my favorite mystery series ever, and this one did not disappoint. Probably my least favorite out of all of them, but I still gave it 4.5 stars. I just love, love, love this author's style of writing. The narrator speaks directly to you, so they're breaking down the 4th wall and they're coaching you on how to solve the mystery alongside them. I did figure parts of this one out, so I'm pretty proud of myself. I really hope this is not the end of the series. I hope he writes a million more because I just love them. And yes, I would recommend reading them in order. So the first book is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, then Everyone on This Train is a Suspect, then Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret is a novella. There is a romance that starts in book 1 and continues on throughout the book. So if you don't go in order, you kind of spoil that. Next on the list was The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez, and this was also kind of disappointing. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I usually love her writing so much. This one I think is my least favorite of hers. I didn't love that you don't really get to spend time with the couple together until the last like 15% of the book. And generally speaking, I didn't love most of the characters. They all kind of annoyed me. And I feel like usually her books have a little bit more of a found family element, and this one just did not have it. And I really liked Say Remember Me, which comes before this one. They're barely interconnected. I do think you can read those in any order. But yeah, this one just didn't do it for me. And I know a lot of people don't love the overlapping love triangle in a sense. The main trope is boyfriend's best friend. The girl is dating a guy and then ends up with his best friend. So a lot of people had a problem with that. I honestly didn't really care for that because her boyfriend sucked. So that's fine. I can't decide if I'm gonna read the book that comes after this one because it's about that guy, and I don't know that I want to read a whole book about him. I'm gonna be honest. Next on the list is How to Cheat Your Own Death, which is the 3rd book in the Castle Knoll Files mystery series. Another one of my favorite mystery series. I don't think she's announced that there's going to be a 4th one, but I'm assuming there will be because it did end on kind of a cliffhanger. This one also has a romance that blossoms throughout the book, so again, you need to read them in order. Also, the 1st and the 3rd book are my favorite. I think the 3rd book was my favorite. It has a cozy vibe because it's set in the English countryside, but the mysteries are pretty legit. They're decently high stakes. I haven't been able to guess the culprit, I think, in any of them. There's also a dual timeline, which I love. So there's always a mystery within the mystery. I just love this series so much. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I cannot wait for hopefully the next one. Okay, this is where things get good. The next book that's on the list that I read was Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune, and I gave this 5 stars. I've definitely talked about this in quite a few videos. I just inhale inhaled it. I don't know why people aren't loving it because I loved it. It's not my favorite. One Golden Summer is my favorite of hers still, but this comes in second. Childhood friends to lovers in adulthood. So it's not exactly a second chance romance, but kind of. The vibes were incredible. The spice was incredible. The book boyfriend was so hot. Georgia, so hot. Yeah, I loved it. I ate it up. I have no notes. Oh, but I will say I didn't love the audiobook. I thought that the narrator made the main female character a little too whiny, which is unfortunate because the audiobook is a duet, but I wouldn't recommend. Now, the next one on this list, I think I actually read in February. I read this very early on, and that is Beneath by Ariel Sullivan. I love this book. I also gave it 5 stars. This is part of her dystopian romance series. Now, the series is a little bit confusing. It is, at the end of the day, going to be a 9-book series made up of 3 trilogies. The first book, which is Conform, is already out. That one came out first. That is basically like the present timeline. Beneath is the first book in the past timeline trilogy. The next book that comes out is Core, and that is the sequel to Conform. So we jump back towards present timeline. This had some Easter eggs to Conform, but it also just was its entirely own story. It was darker and grittier, and the characters had a little bit more trauma and baggage. There was an insane found family in this, and the main male character was so hot yet again. The spice was incredible in this. I loved it. I remember starting it one night, having to go into the office and thinking about it all day, and then when I got home I immediately finished it. No notes. I can't wait to see what is next in the series. I am sad that it's not going to be a continuation of this storyline specifically, but I will wait. I will wait because I loved Conform too, so I just honestly know I'm going to love every single book in this series. Okay, next on the list is The Shippers, which was Catherine Center's newest book. I did go into this thinking I probably won't like it as much as her older books, and not even that old. The Bodyguard and the Rom-Commers are my favorite of hers. The one last year was The Love Haters. That one was okay. This one I think I liked a little bit better, but I still only gave it, what did I give it? 3.5 stars. It was very similar to Our Perfect Storm, where it was a childhood friends to future lovers situation. The setting was fun. It was on a cruise ship, which I enjoyed, but it was so cheesy and just not really believable, and the entire plot was insane. So if you suspend belief and you just like are there for a good time, then you'll enjoy it, but it was not my favorite of hers, sadly. The next book on this list, probably one of my most anticipated, was The Midnight Train by Matt Haig. This is set in the same world as The Midnight Library, which I love. I am a lover of that book. I'm not a hater. It's a very polarizing book because I think you just have to be in the exact right mindset for it to hit. This one I think is actually more neutral. I don't think you need to be in a specific mindset to enjoy the plot or the message in this book. This is about a man who dies, and when he passes away, he gets to go on this train to basically go revisit all of his past memories. This was honestly such a special read. I loved it so much. I gave it 4.5 stars. It met my expectations. The author has posted that there's going to be another book in this world that is more of a sequel to The Midnight Library. So I'm excited for that. And I honestly can't believe I got an advanced copy of this. And even though I love The Midnight Library more, like I said, I think this one will be more universally liked. Next on the list was Annabelle's newest release, which was Dolly All the Time, and I loved it. I truly inhaled it. Her books are just a vibe, like a cozy, summery vibe. Perfect beach read. This also takes place in Rhode Island, and because I live in Massachusetts, I felt like I was much more at home. Older main characters, single mom, return to hometown, billionaire, fake dating, romance, so many tropes, but yet so believable. I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. The only reason it didn't get 5 stars is because I wanted more groveling from the main male character. Again, he got away with a little too much, but I still loved it. Next on the list was The Burning Side. I'm looking at my copy over there. Most of you probably don't know this because you might not have been following me last year. The Bright Years was my favorite book from last year. I loved that book so much. It was a debut literary fiction. Inhaled it, made me cry like a baby at the end. When I saw she was coming out with The Burning Side, I knew I needed to read it, and I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was not as good as The Bright Years for me personally, but I think it's been the opposite for a lot of people, which I love to see. I think that's a sign of a good writer when people have different favorites of your books. This one is very much focused on family dynamics. Dad has Alzheimer's. The main female character is the daughter, and she's dealing with a rocky marriage with her husband after their house just burned down. It's a lot, but it was so good, fast-paced. I love Sarah Damoff's writing. I just think she's a brilliant writer, honestly. Next up is a book from one of my favorite thriller authors, and that is Caller Unknown. Now, I will say this is not my favorite of her books. I gave it 3.5 stars, but it did exactly what I needed it to, and it reset the reading slump that I was entering, pulled me out of it. Regardless of this not being my favorite, it was fast-paced, unputdownable, audiobook was great, it was mysterious, twisty, not as twisty as her other books, and I did guess the main twist, but I still really enjoyed it, and I love her writing so much. Her thrillers are always more than just a thriller, which I can really appreciate and honestly prefer most of the time. Yeah, I will literally read anything she writes at this point. Oh, I didn't say what this is about. It's about a woman whose daughter gets kidnapped, and she basically does everything to get her back, and that's all you should know. Wow, I really did do some damage on this list. Okay, next up is Trope Sick, which I recently read, and I gave it 5 stars. I inhaled this book, read it in under 12 hours. It has every trope that I love, so honestly, I feel like this book was made for me. There is a twist of sorts at the end that a lot of people didn't love, but it's something that I like in books, so I also didn't mind that. It is indeed a brother's best friend romance, except that the brother has passed away. It's also a second chance romance, and it's a book within a book. So these two authors come together to ghostwrite this other author's book for her, and they are forced to work together even though they hate each other, or so they say. It is also dual POV, and you know it's gonna be a good dual POV if I gave it 5 stars, because I do not like dual P romances, and this one was fantastic. This is by the same author of The Best Worst Thing, which I also loved. She writes messy romances, and if you like a messy romance, then you need to read her books, honestly. Next one is Romantic Hero. This one was probably the biggest disappointment on this list specifically. I gave it 2.5 stars. This is by the same author of The Love of My Afterlife, which I loved. It is one of my favorite magical realism romances. This one in particular, Romantic Hero, was just way too cheesy for me, and I did not care for the romantic connection at all. It's about an author whose cowboy character from one of her romances comes to life. They end up fake dating each other because she has to get back at her ex. I don't know what it was. It just didn't really click for me. It honestly put me into a little bit of a reading slump. I don't know. And a lot of people are loving it. So I think take my opinion with a grain of salt, but it wasn't my fave. Okay, we've got a few here that we haven't read yet. The first one is A Secrets We Hide by Karen Slaughter, but this just came out on Tuesday, so I think I have an excuse. This is the sequel to We're All Guilty Here, which I mentioned earlier. So I am in desperate need to read this, but this is part of her new series, and it's a small town crime thriller. I believe the same lead investigators from the first book are the main characters in this book. It's called the North Falls series, if you're wondering, but yeah, I'm excited to read this. Now, I don't have the same excuse with the next one, which is The Someday Garden. I have actually just been putting off reading this because of the mixed reviews, and I already have a love-like relationship with Ashley Poston's books. I haven't hated any of her books, but The 7-Year Slip I enjoyed. A Novel Love Story was fine. The Dead Romantics I loved. So I'm kind of all over the place with her writing. I think for me in The 7-Year Slip, and especially in A Novel Love Story, I just didn't really care about the romance as much as I cared about the plot and the magical realism element. I actually feel like this might be similar because a lot of the reviews that I've been seeing are people saying it's not even really that romantic of a book. All I really know is that there's like a magical garden and a man living in this magical garden, and I think nobody else can see him, maybe. I don't know. Next one on the list is It Could Have Been Her by Lisa Jewell. I don't really have a reason for why I haven't read this. The premise of this one does sound really interesting, but I just haven't heard anything about it, so I think that's why I haven't been drawn to it. If I remember correctly, a child has gone missing, and then a white dog appears, and it's the same white dog that is supposed to be owned by the child, and then a woman finds it and brings it to a house where she maybe then sees the child in the window, or a woman. I honestly think I just butchered that entire synopsis. If anyone's read this book, please let me know, because I need to push to read it. Next on the list is The Romance Revival by Christina Lauren, and I did read this, and I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. It's not my favorite of theirs. I didn't totally buy into the couple actually loving each other. I definitely bought into them being attracted to each other, but it was really fun, fast-paced, had me on the edge of my seat, a little bit of a mystery element to it, a little sci-fi element to it. Sci-fi in the sense of STEM, not outer space. I'm not really a big Amnesia fan in romances, but I didn't mind it in this one. I thought that it worked, and I had a good time with it. It does have classic Christina Lauren elements to it, but it's not like the rest of their romances, so I think as long as you go in with those expectations, you'll enjoy it. Next on the list is Lost and Found. I haven't read this yet, but it did just come out last week, I think. It's the 3rd book in the Spoon series. Savor It, Left of Forever are books 1 and 2. I liked Savor It a lot. I loved Left of Forever. I have heard mixed things about Lost and Found, which makes me weary. I think the plot doesn't totally draw me in. The main female character, essentially her best friend dies, leaves her eggs for her to make a baby out out of so that she can have a baby with her friend's eggs. I don't really know. But I do know that some people have loved it and some people haven't. So I don't feel super rushed to read it, but I would like to because I do really like Tara DeWitt's writing. Now, next on the list is, I think, my favorite read of the year so far, and that is Destination Funeral. This is by the same author of The Other Side of Now, which I really, really loved. That was her debut adult novel, a magical realism romance. This is also a magical realism romance, although a little bit more romance than the last one. It's about a group of friends who have grown apart. They reunite under certain circumstances, and they're forced to kind of go through all their problems together. And that's due to magical circumstances. I don't want to ruin anything because I do think you should go into it blind. If you're an eldest daughter, you will love this book because the main female character is core eldest daughter. I'll think about this book forever, honestly. I loved it so much. I can't remember if I said this, but I gave it 5 stars. Obviously, if it's my favorite book of the year. Okay, we're gonna hit a little bit of a lull now. The next one on the list is Married with Benefits. I haven't read it yet, even though I have had this in my possession for maybe almost a year at this point. This is by the same author of 4 Weekends and a Funeral, which I loved. I just have heard mixed things about this one, so I've been weary, but I do love Marriage of Convenience, so I feel like I will like it, but I need to hear more positive reviews. I've been putting it off just because I'm worried I'm not gonna like it. Actually, very similarly to Hot Girl Murder Club, yes, Ashley Winstead published 2 books this year, which is crazy. This is a thriller, although I've read reviews that it says it's not exactly a thriller, so I'm not really sure what to make of this, but I've been putting it off as well because of the same reason. Just with the mixed reviews, I haven't felt drawn to it. This is set in Hollywood. It's about a Hollywood it girl that I think becomes the #1 suspect for a series of murders, and that's all I know. My friend Emily has read it though, and she did enjoy it, so I will probably read it soon. It's right around 300 pages, so it's short, and I'm sure the audiobook will be a good time, so I will get to this. Okay, the last book on this list that I have read is Vacation Self by Alexandra Romanoff. This is part of her Big Fan novella series under 831 Stories publishing company. I've loved all of the books. I love this one too. I gave it 4 stars. This is definitely a fall romance though, so I would say wait on it, although it comes out the end of August. It's not even out yet, but this is peak Vermont fall romance vibes. This was a really good time, good palate cleanser, although I will say you should read them in order, so Big Fan first, then Square Waves, then Vacation Self. All right, there's 3 more books on this list. Not That Kind of Proposal also, actually no, that's been out I think for over a month. I just don't own it, so I haven't read it, but I do think I'm gonna love it. It's by the same author of Any Trope But You, which I loved, and this is a romance between a wedding planner and a divorce lawyer. I've heard fantastic things. I've heard it's spicy. I really need to read it. Grim Tidings is on here. It's obviously not out yet. It comes out at the end of September, I believe. This is a follow-up to Good Spirits, which I did really enjoy, but it was a holiday romance, and I tend to really only like BK Borson's holiday-themed romances, and Grim Tidings, I'm pretty sure, is not holiday-themed at all. It does have the paranormal aspect to it, which I do usually like in romances. So I'm going into it a little weary, but I have high hopes. The next one on this list is the 3rd book in the Wicked Games series because I thought it was coming out this year. However, there has not been a peep about it, so I don't think it's coming out this year, which means I need to replace it. So there's 2 options. There's The Pirate Queen by Ariel Lahan, which is the same author of The Frozen River. The Pirate Queen sounds so good. It's about, I think she's the first female Irish sea captain in maybe the 1800s, something like that. I'm gonna read it either way. But I also have We Chase Shadows by Richard Osman, which I didn't know was coming out this year until I had already made this list. And I have an advanced copy, and I love Richard Osman's books, and I kind of feel like I should replace it with this one. This is the sequel to the We Solve Murders mystery that he published 2 years ago? 1 year ago. 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. It doesn't fall under the Thursday Murder Club series, but it does have similar vibes because it's Richard Osman, and he just writes really amazing, cozy mysteries where you have the perfect found family and you don't really know what's gonna happen, and there's chaos, but it's just a fun time. I'm excited to read it. I have really high hopes for it, honestly. Okay, and then the last one on this list also isn't out yet, and that is The Knave and the Moon, which is the sequel and the final part of the, what is the duology called? I don't remember, but the first book is The Knight and the Moth. I didn't love The Knight and the Moth as much as everyone else did, but I loved her Shepherd King duology, and the second book in that was even better than the first. So I have high hopes that that same thing will happen with this one. I don't really know what to expect, honestly. I think the first one felt a little bit predictable, and also I wasn't really buying into the romance. So I am kind of hoping that something crazy happens with the romance in the second book. Anyways, those are my 26 books for 2026. Lists and progress. We have done okay, I guess. I have no idea how long this video is going to turn out after I edit it, but if you've made it this far, thank you for hanging. If you like this video, please leave me a comment. And if you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe. I do try to post a video every Sunday. I have September new releases coming next week, and then after that a vlog, and then after that my August reading wrap up. So We have the content coming. All right, I'm done yapping. I don't have anything else to say. Hope to see you next time. Bye.